I'm Lou, and in this week's episode, Teresa and I talk about friendship. A fellow podcaster, Mel Robbins, did an episode titled Spring It On, where she talks about an easy spring cleaning for your life. There's one segment she talks about a friend cleanse. A friend cleanse is a process of figuring out what friendships serve you, setting boundaries, and deepening your best relationships, according to Robbins. Friends are only meant to be with you for a season. That's a novel way of thinking about friendships. And you know what? In my life, I've found that she was right. Want to check it out again? Mel Robbins, Bring It On. But today, you're here on Earrings Off, and you get to hear Teresa and I talk about friendship.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Earrings Off. We want to invite you to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. You can find us on Facebook at Earrings Off Podcast and on Instagram at The Earrings Off Podcast.
Welcome to Earrings Off. I'm Lou.
And I'm Teresa. Let's get started.
Teresa, this Tuesday in the month of June, one of the Tuesdays in the month of June, that's Best Friends Day. So, can we talk a bit about friendship? That's That's always good stuff. So what do you think about that Best Friends Day and the idea of friendship?
Well, personally, I love the idea, honestly, of friendships. I don't think that I could exist without them. I need that relationship. You know, it's important to me to have a friend.
Of course. And
the concept of best friends is that's a the concept of a best friend is, it's amazing. I mean, if you have that person who you can share your most intimate thoughts and not have to worry about being judged or just gaining that support that you need whenever things are bad and when things are good.
Well, yeah, but because when you were talking, I'm thinking, okay, well, Teresa must be where I am with the thing about best friends, because I can't point to one person and say that's a best friend at this point in my life.
Mm-hmm.
When I was younger, I had two best friends, and we did everything together. You saw one, you saw the others, that kind of thing. But as I've gotten older, in different periods or seasons of my life, I've had friends who were critical to my life, that I could not have made it through. But I have seen what that looks like with one person through my husband. Now he had one best friend forever, the best man at our wedding. They were each other's identified best friend. And I always used to tell him, I never had that. I can't really relate to that, but I've seen it in operation, and it's a pretty amazing thing, to see.
It's funny because my husband has a best friend also.
Wow!
They've been best friends.
So he has one too. Is that so?
From college?
Is it easier for me?
But he has one. I don't think so. I don't think that's it at all for him. For my husband, he is an introvert. So, it's not like he has he has a couple of very good friends that have been with him a lifetime. Like literally,
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
since he was a teenager, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and
So
he
let me
had
stop you
his
there. So
very
they were friends when they were younger, and they're still friends. Never any
so
break or anything.
so no break. He that I know about.
Yeah.
His best friend from college. They pledged together their best friends, and they can go, a month or so without speaking to one another, but once they pick it up, once they reconnect, it's like it never there was no break in time. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And he did have, from childhood, he had a very best friend who who he along with his son uh drowned at a family. This
Oh.
gentleman drowned trying to save his son.
Oh
Hmm.
no.
And now and they were best friends. That was his very best friend. And but yeah, um and I, like you, I had a very good, what I would call a best friend, and she broke my heart. So
Well,
that is
so
and
you can. Okay.
but
Yeah.
yeah, and you know I have also a really, really, really good friend, and I think we've reconnected as of late. We grew up together,
Yeah.
since elementary school through high school and college, and now, there was a break in the friendship, and now we're back together. And I
That's interesting because the exact same thing has happened to me with my two best
what
buddies from childhood. I wonder why the break occurs, and I used to beat myself up about it, because once we reconnected, I felt so bad. I was like, how did I do that? That I didn't keep them the whole time, and there was this gap. And and my husband said to me, "Well, Lou, it works both ways. Just like you weren't trying to get in touch
it
with them,
does.
they weren't trying to get in touch with you. And so it happened, but don't dwell on that. Just enjoy it for what it is now." And when I tell you, it has been the most amazing thing to reconnect with my best
Oh
buddies,
yeah.
from childhood. And even though there was this gap, when I talk to them, when you talked earlier about it being a safe space and you feel like someone is there for you, I get those same feelings with them
Hmm.
when we
I don't
talk.
think that changes.
Yeah. And so
Hmm.
with this pandemic, of course, we weren't seeing people, but that's the thing I look forward to is when I can reconnect with them and actually get with them, and see them face to face. But I had something happen with that was like one of my very best friends. Probably it was years ago, and this was when I had decided to leave a position that paid me well, and my family, we were doing well. But this was when I decided to pivot and go to law school. And it was a very hard decision for me to make because we were a young couple, and we had a small child, and the finances were tenuous, and it was very difficult, very scary for me to resign from my position. And I had a friend, my very good friend at that point, knew how I was struggling. And one day she just unleashed and said, "You are so selfish, to be doing this to your family." And that's too much to ask of your husband, and your kid's gonna be terrible. You're not gonna be there to raise him. And when I tell you, I will never forget standing in my kitchen that Saturday morning because I was cooking breakfast and I was talking to her on the phone. And when she just let all of this out, I was so shook. I'm telling you, it did so much to destroy whatever confidence I had at that point about my decision. It rattled me to my core because here was someone I greatly respected, that I even, that was my safe space to say how this was scary for me. And I was going to be losing my income, an income that we desperately needed. And I wasn't taking this decision lightly. And I was struggling with it. And for her
sure.
to say to me, basically, your marriage is going to be shot to hell, and your kid's going to be one of these kids that grows up with all of these problems because of you being selfish. I just, the friendship couldn't recover after that because I just saw that as I needed you to be supportive, and you certainly understood how difficult that was for me. And I think had it not been for Nasheed being so supportive and saying, you know what, don't know why she said that. We've already made this decision as a family, and we got this. And because
that's your best friend.
Oh, absolutely.
Nasheed.
Without a doubt. He really is. And
yeah.
I say that because that was a hard decision. And even when I started school, because somebody that knows you and you respect, when they say that, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, every time something would happen, I started second guessing myself until I put some distance in between that conversation. And I was able to look at it critically for what it was. And there at its core, I think it wasn't so much about me, it was about her. Because
that's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah, she wanted to go get her. We both had masters at that time. She wanted to go get her PhD, and she didn't have that support at that time that I had. So I think it was more about, how it is in friendships. We love people, but when we're in relationship, it's always comfortable when we're all sort of at the same point. And it gets scary when people are moving in different directions. So, yeah.
Well, yeah, it does get scary, but that's when friendship is really put to test, right? You still have to support even in that.
Yeah.
And that's what true friendship is all about.
Yeah.
No matter the changes, right? You support, but you still, now if you were talking about going to rob a bank to support your family, then I can understand her having that kind of response about you being selfish. That would have been a selfish act, but doing something that's going to, in the long term, be better for your family. Yeah, you're going to sacrifice you're going to sacrifice until you get there, but when you get there, it's going to be that the outcome of that can only be good for your family.
But and I'm thankful that I survived and stuck by the decision, but it's just a hard time. But let's talk a little bit then about the friendships that I guess morph or change as time goes on. That because I think that's what happens when maybe we have the gaps in friendship and there is a reconnect. I don't think, well, in my case, I can only speak for me. There wasn't anything that happened like what I described with this other friend, because these two friends have always been there for me. But it's just life gets busy and, your
Exactly.
priorities change. But as I've gotten older, I realize how valuable and how you have to really make time for friendship because it's what feeds you
You
and,
have to
and what
nurture it.
exactly it's and that to me, Teresa, we've done an episode on self-care. I think that's part of it because
Oh,
sure
absolutely.
making sure that we are in healthy relationships that feed us, so I
Hmm.
I've I come especially coming out of this pandemic and we've lost so many people, that makes it very real that what, nothing's promised to us. So you want to make sure that we're always making sure that we recognize the importance of relationships and friendships.
They are important. I mean, to be as part of your overall health,
Yeah,
they're very important.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So
So yeah, I just would like to talk a little bit about what does it mean to be a good friend, you know?
yeah,
What
yeah.
what does that mean, you know? And sometimes I do feel like because I am caught up into my one friendship that I'm really sad that I didn't nurture is my college roommate, right?
Really?
We were really close. Yeah. And I feel like I blew it. Um, and we've never talked about it, but I feel like the change occurred when, you know, coincidentally, both of our mothers were diagnosed with breast cancer at the same time.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, around the same time. And so my mom, her the course of action that her doctor took was very different from the course of action that her mother's doctor took.
Mm.
My mom's doctor attacked it aggressively.
Really?
He did a he did a mastectomy, and even though there was no evidence that it had traveled in other parts of her body, he removed her lymph nodes, not changing the stuff and trying to stay focused. Knowing what I know now about lymph nodes, I would have said, no, pump the brakes. Let's do
Yeah,
some testing. Let's not do that. That
yeah.
was pretty aggressive. So he took her lymph nodes and he put her on chemo and radiation immediately. So all the research at that
Teresa,
time
I
said
did not know.
you need.
I did not know your mom was a breast cancer survivor.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. She back in those days, you either did radiation or chemo, didn't do both, but he did both. And
Okay.
um and her the therapy that her mother got was different. um and her mom ultimately succumbed to breast cancer, right? And it was traumatic for me, and even more so for her. It was her mom. I didn't handle that well, but it was in that it I didn't handle it well, and I was not supportive of her because I couldn't even fathom the thought of her losing her mother. So
Mm.
I was suffering for
Oh, yeah.
myself.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and I didn't support her in her suffering. You know what I mean? And I
Oh,
honestly
yeah.
believe that's yeah. I believe that that's where our I think I think about it a lot because we talk. And she's one of those friends, like if I were to call her up and we would catch up like for hours on the phone,
Hmm.
but I have to initiate that call.
Oh,
It's
really?
very rare
Yeah.
that she will call me. And that only occurred after that, when I sat down and thought about it. And I probably should call her up and ask her about it. But I think that was a turning point in our friendship. I feel like I let her down. I know I let her down during that
Oh,
time, but
yeah.
honestly, it was just, and that is something that I've found out about myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
No matter what, if it's someone that I care about and they lose somebody, I don't know how to really support them in that loss, right?
Yeah.
And it's a tough thing for me. And and then, like, when I lost my own dad, even, I really didn't want people to support me. I don't know, I think I'm crazy when it comes to death. It's like, don't
No,
talk to me.
no,
I don't want to
I'm gonna have
talk
to
about
stop you right
it.
there. I'm gonna have to stop you right there, friend, because when I lost my sister, you stepped up. You could not have been any more supportive. And you were very appropriate
Well,
in that support. So apparently you've
I don't know,
learned yourself.
Lou. I even
Yeah,
thought,
no,
well, no.
I
You know
know.
what, Lou? I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad you brought that up, Lou, because of the relationship that you and I have developed as friends
Mhm.
over the years. And because of our relationship with Earrings Off, I it was uncomfortable for me. I hurt so much for you, and I
Oh, I
had to
know.
talk to myself to get to the point where I could talk to you. Honestly, that was a work in progress. You're right. You're absolutely right. That was a
But you
work,
did
and I
it.
had to be there, and I had to, I did it. You're right. I did it. But I had to,
But,
but I do. I'm really weird in
but Teresa, this
that
brings
type
up,
of situation.
you know what though? But this makes me think about our earlier point with my friend that let me down when I was making that hard decision about quitting my job. You know, part of friendship is when things happen, stepping back and thinking, okay, what's going on with that person? Because we're friends and usually, they're right there with me, supportive. So what happened? Because I'm going to be honest, when that happened with my friend, um, I wasn't processing what was happening to her. It was years
To
later
her.
when I realized, oh, her dream was to get her PhD because she's very bright and she too was motivated. And it was just, she did not see the possibility of quitting her job at that point in her life to drop everything and go to school. But I never even processed it was about that. I just thought as,
Mm-hmm.
she was, I saw it as, okay, is she jealous? What is this? What's going on with her? And I became angry because, when you say I'm selfish and you say I'm harming my marriage, that's one thing. But when you talk about I've damaged my child, that's all bets are wrong. So when she
Yeah.
said that
Right.
repeatedly to me, I immediately cut contact because I thought this person is
Mm-hmm.
toxic.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been taught about boundaries. And I was like, you know what? That's a wrap. I let number one and number two go, that I'm selfish and that I'm going to harm my marriage. But when you talk about I'm a bad mother too, that was like too much. But,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
but, yeah, but I did not process that at all at the time, how she had some things going on in her own life that caused her to react that way. So, yeah, yeah. Part of friendship is not only just looking at the immediate, but to look at it, sometimes having hard conversations. And that's what I've done through
Mm-hmm.
the years. If I value a friendship, if I truly value it. Now, if it's not something I'm willing to go through all of this for, I just accept for whatever reason, that's not going to work. I consider that as setting a boundary for myself and setting some limits. But if it's a relationship that I treasure, I'm willing to be uncomfortable and transparent in that
Oh yeah.
relationship, and
Mm-hmm.
that's sometimes that's hard to do.
Mhm.
It's and it's uncomfortable.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, friendship is work. It is a
yeah.
lot of work.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
the beauty in it is that as long as we live and breathe, we get another chance and another
True.
opportunity
Mhm.
where, you know what, you might make it into something else, or make some
Right.
changes, or to reconnect. So and sometimes, though, as painful as it may be, you realize that sometimes you can't go back. Sometimes you can go back and pick that up, and you have to be okay with that also. You know,
With that.
and that doesn't mean that you're a bad person or the other person's a bad person. It just means that you're in different places, and it's okay. It's okay that
It is okay.
things change. Um, so, and you have to be okay with that. But in terms of what that looks like, when you use the example earlier about well, if you go rob a bank, I'm not going to be there. And I've heard people say I'm the ride or die chick. No, no, no. I'm with you, Teresa.
Mhm.
I'm
Mhm.
not doing any time or any of that kind of stuff. Don't. I'm not that kind of. I'm not that kind of friend. But
No.
friendship to me.
Back in the day though, back in the day, I have to tell you, I have piled up in the car with a bunch of girlfriends to go check out what one of the boyfriends was doing. We have done that. That was
Well,
ride or die. It was like, all
yeah.
right.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That
Yeah.
I think
Absolutely.
about that. That was crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, is he in that house?
Yeah. Oh, oh. Well, you know what? Yeah. Done that also. Isn't that funny?
Yeah,
Yeah. What's
yeah,
he doing? Yeah, that was him.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's so
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah. Done all of
Yeah,
that. So,
goofing around.
yeah. But
Hilarious.
and survived that as well. So, friendship, you're right. It's about being in a safe space, and it's not how frequently you talk to the person, because I'm sort of like your husband Robert, in that I have a close friend. We may not talk for months, but when we talk, we pick right up where we were, and we don't miss a beat. So those relationships are precious. But I think why I've always struggled with saying best friend is because I grew up with three sisters. And so because of that, I grew up with best friends that they were always my
Hmm.
safe space. Now, those are the women that I know without a doubt that no matter what happens, they're there, even in my craziness and whatever happened. So I grew up with a built in system of best friends, if you will. So that
Hmm.
that was it's been one of the biggest blessings of my life. So yeah.
Well, I
But
will tell you that this is going to sound a little cliche, but um, um, as as an adult woman, I have grown. My relationship with my mom has morphed into more of a friendship than mother daughter.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
in the beginning, when I
yeah,
was younger, there were things that were completely out of bounds that
yeah.
we couldn't talk about because
Right,
I've
right,
told you about her,
right,
how she is about the Bible and Christianity and church and things I couldn't say, or how I had to
hmm
phrase what I would say to her would be different. So I knew what I could say and what I couldn't say to her, and how she would respond to me. And now either she's relaxed more or she's given up on me.
yeah.
I can
I
just have
know.
a
No.
I can just have a decent I can
Yeah.
have a conversation about my true feelings about
Right.
things,
Yeah.
and she not tell me, girl, just go pray about that, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna pray for you.
Yeah.
So we can actually talk about it.
Yeah.
And I'm happy for that, because it's like, dang, if I can't talk to her about it, then who can I talk
Yeah.
about? You know what I mean?
But you're right.
So
Those
that's been a good thing.
Yeah, I had that same kind of relationship that, changed through the years with my mom. And you're right, they do become your best friends. But my favorite card that I ever received was from my son when he was, I don't know how old he was, maybe 13, 14 or something, but it was a Mother's Day card. And on the front was like, I think it's a single flower on the front. And it said, I looked all my life for my best friend. And then when you open the card, there were two flowers side by side. And it said, and you were right there standing beside me all the time.
Mm.
And, and that means a lot because you do change as parent and child if you're fortunate and blessed that you start changing the dynamics of the relationship a bit. And he may have been a bit older than that because I'm looking back on the teenage years. I doubt he sent that then because those were rough years. But anyway, so you do. The relationship changes a bit. But I'm going to I want to share let me share a little bit about my very first best friend. And maybe this is a lesson for people about what that best friend relationship looks like. When I was probably from the time I was maybe 5 until maybe 9 or so, my best friend was Thomas. And Thomas lived in my neighborhood. And you saw Thomas, you saw me. As a matter of fact, we had a neighbor, Mr. Crockett. And for years, when he became older and we were adults, when he'd see me, when I'd go home, he'd say, "Where's Thomas?" Because that's how you saw it. The neighborhood saw Thomas, you saw Lou. Wherever I was, there was Thomas. But we both, our moms had this lady in the neighborhood that looked after us. That was like our babysitter. And Thomas became my best friend because the lady, I think her name was Mrs. West, or it was something with a W. And she made us this stuff for breakfast. It was like a ghoul or something. It was disgusting, like oatmeal and cream of wheat all rolled into one. It was disgusting. No sugar, nothing. I hated it. But she would make you eat it. I mean, that's what we had for breakfast. And I could not get that stuff down. I would gag and I was forced to, she'd say, that's your breakfast. And we would have to eat it. But Thomas would eat it for me and he hated it too. And he would get his down and he didn't like it, but he would make sure that I didn't get in trouble for not eating that stuff. And he became my hero. And to this day, I have a warm place in my heart for dear, sweet Thomas, my very first best friend. So.
Oh, that is such a sweet story.
That's true too. But that's it for us today, folks. We're talking about friendship. And we're thanking you for being friends of Earrings Off. And as always, we're wishing you well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Take good care.
Take good care.